Well, good morning. 2 weeks from today, the Iowa caucuses are going to happen. And for someone who's been around this block a time or two, it's hard to imagine that 2 weeks out that our endorsement could make that big of a difference. I want you to know going into this process, like a year ago, we really had a three-legged stool for the candidates. One leg was, what is their character? What's their core values? What's their convictions, their integrity? Can we trust them? That was leg one. Leg two was, what is their pro-family, optimistic, conservative, constitutional vision for this country? And then leg three was, can they beat Barack Obama? Those were the three legs to this stool. And we've just been blessed to have these candidates join us and have a front row seat to this process. We started this out with a 99-county tour to build organization throughout the state. We did a presidential lecture series that allowed our base to get to know the candidates and the candidates to get to know our base. We then came out with a sweeping pro-family, pro-marriage pledge. And then we concluded with a Thanksgiving Family Forum, which I believe is a record number of attendees for the caucuses. I believe 2,907 attended, to see how does a candidate, how do they view the world? Through what lens do they view the world? And then came the arduous task of, do we make a selection? In a year where the economy is center stage, the board is thrilled to say we've kept the family center stage as well. As the CEO of the Family Leader, the president and CEO of the Family Leader, it was my hope and goal the entire process that in a very divided caucus, that we would have unanimity on our board and with our executive team. It's one of those deals, how could we go out and advocate for a candidate if we didn't have unanimity with our leadership team? And I'm here to tell you today that we've reached unanimity. Everybody is on the same page. First of all, the board of directors believes that the Family Leader as an organization is a standard bearer, that we stand for issues. We stand for God's design of government, the framers with the Constitution, and God's design for the family. We stand for issues. We are a standard bearer. And so, therefore, they are unanimous that the Family Leader as an organization will not take sides in this caucus process. That being the case, they also said, but we also see 65 to 75% of the Iowa caucus goers who are still up in the air, who can be moved from one direction to another. They're looking for leadership. They were also unanimous in saying we need to offer a voice of leadership through our executives, individuals, myself as President and CEO of the Family Leader, and Chuck Hurley as the President of the Iowa Family Policy Center. And the board is unanimous on allowing us to step out with a leadership voice as individuals, and collectively as individuals, they are supportive of our choice. Therefore, my personal endorsement. Therefore, my personal endorsement. After the straw poll, I remember giving this person a call, and I said, you need to stay in the race. This race needs you. This person articulates a worldview as well as I've heard in the last decade or two about what we believe in. And he's able to apply that worldview to current circumstances and situations. I told this person at the time, I really believe he could be the Huckabee in this race. I saw him as a champion for the family in the U.S. House. I saw him as a champion for the family in the U.S. Senate. I saw him as a champion for the family on the campaign trail. Matter of fact, every time, whether it was the Thanksgiving Family Forum, or whether it was a debate stage, or or whether it was in a hostile environment, he always brought the issues of the day back to the family. If it was limited government, he brought it back to the family. If it was a thriving economy, he brought it back to the family. Everything he brought back to the family, and he has been a stalwart and a soldier for the sanctity of human life and God's design for the family in one man, one woman marriage. Then we looked pragmatically. And we honestly said, if we launched him out of Iowa, if we actually had the opportunity to launch him out of Iowa, could he beat Barack Obama? And we looked at the past and we said, he's defeated 3 incumbent Democrats. We looked at the past, we looked at where he lives in the Pennsylvania, Ohio area, which is going to be very crucial for us winning the White House. And at the end of the day, I think it was my wife who reminded me, because we had to do our own little caucus before coming up with our own decision. She said, you know, Bob, when you endorsed Governor Mike Huckabee 4 years ago, you said one of the reasons you endorsed him is because you would never have to apologize to your kids because you endorsed him. She goes, I think you can say that about Rick Santorum as well. So today, I, as an individual, am going to endorse Rick Santorum. I'm going to mobilize whatever resources that I have at my disposal to advocate for him. I will not tear down another candidate because we have other good candidates in this race. And if one of those candidates emerge as our nominee, I'll get fully behind that candidate. And then my boys remind me once in a while, they say, Dad, you're never wrong when you do what's right. I believe Rick Santorum comes from us. He comes from us, just not to us. He comes from us. He's one of us. And so I look forward to the next 2 weeks to see what I can do to advance his candidacy to see if we can get him out of the state of Iowa. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Chuck Hurley, for his endorsement.
Thanks, Bud. Thanks, Bob. It's a good crowd here today. Bob, I have to tell you, I feel a little bit like the third string guard for the world champion Chicago Bulls when he got in toward the end of the game and he made a free throw in a historic game. And he was interviewed by the media after the game, and he said, you know, I'll always remember this day as the one that Michael Jordan and I combined for 70 points. So, Bob, you and I have got a lot of news coverage today. So, anyway, I would like to share with you folks a personal endorsement. I am president of the Iowa Family Policy Center, have been for 13 years, but I am taking a day off today. And in personally endorsing Rick Santorum, before I get to the policy reasons, there's a few personal reasons. Rick, like my wife and me, Rick and his wife have several children, large family. Bob likes to say that we're not only pro-life, we're prolific. And Rick is also a homeschooler, as my wife and I are, and there's sort of a special blessing in that. We're both 53 years of age. We've both been toiling in the civic vineyard for over 3 decades. We were both first elected in 1990. We're both sort of deliberate, sober, never give up types with deep convictions. We've both made several mistakes. We're both primarily animated by pro-life, pro-family, pro-faith convictions. And he's a lawyer, and I'm a recovering lawyer, and one of us is telegenic. Before we get to the policy reasons, I do need to say that I have a few regrets about this endorsement. I would have preferred to be here today endorsing a team. As we all know, there are several great pro-family candidates. And it would be my dream, my ideal, and I will continue to pray and work and hope for a coalescing of those candidates. Just like we did here in Iowa 1 year ago to defeat the 3 Iowa Supreme Court activist judges. And I will refrain from disparaging any of the other pro-family candidates or any of their good-willed supporters. Second, I regret disappointing some of those dear friends who are valiantly working for other fine candidates and who disagree with my endorsement today. I hope and pray that we can respect each other's convictions and conclusions and join forces again to regain the Iowa Senate next year and to pass pro-life, pro-marriage, pro-school choice legislation through that body and get it to Governor Branstad. I do regret that one erstwhile friend and culture warrior has threatened to, quote, burn Bob's body, drag it through the streets, and hang it from a bridge, unquote, if Bob doesn't endorse who that person wants him to endorse. Unfortunately, this individual claims to follow the good book, which says things like, let all bitterness, anger, and malice be put away from you. Be completely humble and gentle, forbearing and forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, has forgiven you. To live at peace with your brother. And finally, quote, love is kind. It is not rude. It is not easily angered. Today, I want to extend an olive branch to any and every overheated former friend in this movement. And my final regret about today's endorsement is that it had to happen during Christmas week and so late in the process. Most of that fault we could perhaps blame on Florida, moving the process up. Some of that is simply due to the exceedingly difficult, tedious process, time-consuming process of trying to choose just one candidate from a great field. But I believe in this age of Twitter that we're not too late, and I believe that if Washington and his troops could cross the Delaware on Christmas Day to help save the nation, it's okay for us to do our small part during Christmas week. Despite these and other regrets and the long odds that we may face, I agree with Michael Jordan when he said, I can accept failure, but I can never accept not trying. And as John Quincy Adams said, duty is ours. Results belong to God. Finally, to conclude, what sold me on Rick Santorum? First, he meets and exceeds the biblical qualifications, which Noah Webster so eloquently laid out for us when we're choosing a candidate. Rick is capable, God-fearing, trustworthy, and hates bribes. Second, as Bob mentioned, Rick's passion and his ability to link national renewal to strong families. Two specific items that he mentioned in a Reagan-esque speech in Council Bluffs 2 months ago. He reminded us all that economics is a family issue. In fact, the Greek word for economics is oikos, which means household or family unit. Strong families are not only the best friend and foundation of a strong economy, but bad economic policies can cripple struggling families, forcing both parents to work long hours and outsource some of their parenting to other less God-ordained surrogates. The other thing Rick mentioned in that speech, which really resonated with me, and this is my hope if he becomes the 45th President of the United States. He said he would proclaim his first year in office as the year of the family, travel the United States, and make the case that strengthening families must be our culture's and our nation's #1 priority. Lastly, I'm endorsing Rick because of the national and state leaders that I respect so much, who know Rick and who have spoken so highly of him, like Dr. Dobson, Tony Perkins, Mike Huckabee, and many, many others. And also my respect for those who have endorsed Rick, like Bob, Pastors Kerry Gordon and Terry Amon, Steve Boonder, and others who are close to our organization, Tea Party leaders, and many others. So I urge every undecided Iowa caucus goer to take a close look at Rick, to study the scriptures, to pray hard, and to vote their conscience. For above all, we answer to God for our vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. This time we'll take any questions. One person that maybe Chuck missed in the endorsements that happened yesterday is Pastor Albert Calloway has also endorsed Rick Santorum, who's a very close friend of ours as well. Any questions that you might have?
Who threatened to burn Bob's body if he doesn't endorse you?
I hope it's not a family member. You don't.
It's an individual that I dearly love and I have approached, and we are working on reconciliation.
Does that person support Newt Gingrich?
I think we don't want to get into that.
Well, then why did you bring it up?
Yeah.
The reason I brought it up is because we have extremely strong convictions in this state. And there are dear friends who, in the heat of the moment, say things that they regret. And if there is fallout from today's endorsement, it is Bob's and my commitment to work at reconciliation. That's a Christian virtue, and it's also a common grace virtue. And so those sort of threats being breathed out need to be confronted and not just swept under the rug. Until that individual deals with his own anger problem, those sort of things will divide and they'll hurt our opportunity to coalesce around a pro-family candidate, and they'll hurt our opportunity to win the Iowa Senate back.
I think the big thing there is, Kay, is that January 4, and for those of us who have been in the caucus process before, we know that January 4 is also coming. And January 4, we need to get along again. Well, we all need to come together. We get passionate about the candidates that are in the races. We've had, like I said, a front row seat to vet these candidates. We've made the best choice that we can make. I mean, if the Des Moines Register wants to endorse a candidate who's barely been here, then I think it's okay for us, Chuck and I, to endorse a candidate who's been in about 350 communities in the state of Iowa right now. I think he's doing it the right way, yes.
What will your role be on the Santorum campaign? Are you going to have an official role at all?
No, I don't believe I'll have an official role. I'll do whatever, maybe the Santorum campaign wants out of me, or how I best can be used. Now, we also need to remember, there's only 2 weeks left. 2 weeks left with Christmas coming into this cycle as well. But I will do whatever I can. This is not a light endorsement. This is not a name on a paper endorsement. I really do want to activate and allow people to understand why I came to this endorsement. And if they chose to do it, I really believe Rick Santorum, he's the one candidate who has not caught his wave yet. But every place I go, people, what do you think about this Rick Santorum guy? I was in the hall at the Sioux City debate. People that were for different candidates were coming up to me saying, I really like that Santorum. So I really believe there's a movement as well. And I think Rick Santorum has a chance to deliver on Iowa caucus night. I really do.
So beforehand, you didn't talk about some sort of official role or what you would be doing, everything?
No. Matter of fact, right now, just so you know, Senator Santorum is probably learning about this by a text message. We did not inform any of the candidates before this because there are coordination issues between C4s and campaigns and stuff, so we wanted to make sure everything was clear. That's why we're not with the campaign either today while we're at the Comfort Suites.
Mr. Paternoss, did you mean to, in your very opening sentence, you said it's hard to imagine how, with only 2 weeks to go to the caucuses, that this could make such a big difference. Could you clarify what you meant? Are you minimizing the significance of these because there's only 2 weeks left?
In a typical year, I would say if you come in only 2 weeks out, there's no way your endorsement's going to have an impact. But ladies and gentlemen, I've never seen a caucus like this. Ever have seen a caucus like this. People are going from one candidate to another in a 10-minute period and trying to find out where do they land. So I do believe a voice of endorsement may have an impact. So I don't mean to diminish it, but I also recognize that we're down to 14 days minus Christmas.
And Mr. Hurley, would you also clarify, when you were talking about you wanted to coalesce, you wanted to endorse a team, I don't really understand what you mean. Do you mean that you are still hoping that evangelicals will coalesce behind Santorum?
Either that or my main meaning was something that Joanne Zimmerman and Don Avenson did in their gubernatorial primary in 1990. He was running second, Don was running second, Joanne was running third or fourth, Tom Miller was first. They coalesced and leapt to first. It just makes a lot of sense to me. You need a team to run a country. And so this isn't about one person. This isn't just about Rick Santorum.
So you want Michelle Bachmann to drop out and run as
I refuse to take a swing at somebody and diminish what they think is their God-ordained role. I refuse to do that. What I would say, instead of, quote, drop out, unquote, is to say, why can't the top 3 or so pro-family candidates come together and figure out who has the talents for president, who has the talents for other roles in the federal government, whether it's Attorney General, Secretary of State, Vice President, Health and Human Services Secretary, and those people could quickly, I mean, with the 10-10-10 situation now, could quickly vaunt into first place, win the Iowa caucuses, and win the nomination. And that is why I said I regret that that hasn't happened yet, but I will continue to hope and pray for it in the future.
And how likely do you think that is?
Well, it depends on the humble heart or not of the individuals. It's very difficult to do that. Bob did that in his gubernatorial primary. It takes a humble heart. It takes people caring about the nation more than caring about their own glory.
So are you counting, who is your, when you say the top 3 there, are you counting Perry, Bachman, and Santorum, or what are you counting as the 3 top pro-families?
I really believe, Dave, to answer that question, is that if that, I mean, we heard from several of our supporters. So this isn't just a Chuck idea or somebody else just thought about it. A lot of our supporters said, boy, it would make it a lot easier if one candidate would join another candidate, or maybe 2 candidates join another candidate, so that we could coalesce. Because I think the caucus goers see the polls as well, whether it's 10, 10, 10, 14. You know, like you put those numbers together, you have a dynamo candidate coming out of Iowa. Now, we're not saying those numbers would hold up, but our fear all along was that the conservatives would fragment their vote. And that's a good problem because we have a lot of good pro-family candidates in the race. So our goal here with today, though, is to say, in our assessment of the candidates, for all the reasons we've laid out, we believe Rick Santorum is the best one to launch out of Iowa right now, who can go further. But if a teaming were to happen, which I think is unlikely, but if it happened, we would sure take a look at that and probably want to endorse that team as well.
Have you spoken with the campaigns about that idea about some dropping out and coalescing around?
You know, what I did is we've had a couple of board meetings that you may have read about. Well, one of our board meetings was on Friday. And the unanimity that the board reached on Friday was it would be great if there was a team approach. I mean, there's a team approach. And since I can visit with the candidates, or I have the opportunity to visit with the candidates, I spoke to a few candidates just to gauge, where are they at. I'm not going to get into the conversation, but that's up to them, not up to us. But at least I laid it out before them.
What was their response to you?
Again, that's a private conversation I want to keep private.
How do you think this reflects on the organization that you had the big the forum, Thanksgiving forum with a couple thousand people, who knows how many people watching on TV and on the internet, all leading up until this moment, and then there are individual moments for you too, but the group as a whole doesn't really have a moment. So what was the point of the whole exercise?
Well, I think to advance pro-family values in a campaign. I think the other thing is to do a thorough vetting of all the candidates, which we did. And I think what's reflective of a little bit, Dave, is what you're seeing in the Iowa caucuses right now as well. But the other piece of it, we also recognize that we have some supporters that are probably supporting other candidates, and that's okay with us if that's what they feel led to do.
Santorum's been in Iowa for weeks and weeks, and been in every county, and yet his poll numbers are really low. How is it that you can see all these positive things about him, and most of Iowa hasn't been able to see this?
Well, first of all, I understand that a caucus is a turnout exercise. Who's going to turn people out on January 3? I believe because he's invested that kind of time, and because of the reports we hear back on the ground, because of his organization, I believe he is ready for a January 3 surprise. I really do. And hopefully this gives him a stamp of credibility that some people are waiting for. I'm not saying it will, but hopefully that's what it does.
Doesn't this reflect the diluted potential impact of the evangelical community, though, and give the opportunity to somebody like Mitt Romney to rise or Gingrich to rise?
Well, I think, Tom, we always said, the fear would be a fragmented vote, and I think it's because we have a lot of good candidates. If we were to develop a coalescing, and everyone has watched this race. Michelle Bachmann peaks after a New Hampshire debate. Herman Cain after a Florida debate. Rick Perry when he gets in. Newt Gingrich peaks as well. We still believe that Rick Santorum has that opportunity. And if we can mobilize, we hope that's the case. Dan?
What do you have a problem with Peter Gingrich? Is there a reason you did not endorse him?
We really like, and you know, I think, that I really like Speaker Gingrich. And believe me, this decision of coming to an endorsement of one candidate was really tough for us as well. So we're not going to say anything bad about Speaker Gingrich. If Speaker Gingrich emerges and becomes the eventual nominee or the person that we need to get behind, I'll fully get behind Speaker Gingrich.
And did any of the board members, do they have other candidates?
Well, I think it was a journey or a process, but I believe it culminated yesterday. It culminated yesterday in really a unique way where I think it surprised everybody that we were all together individually in different areas, even parts of the country, going, I believe it's Rick Santorum. And that's what we were looking for. That's what we were praying for, to say we would like to reach unanimity. And we reached it yesterday. Had we not reached it, I'm not so sure if I'd be out here doing this right now.
So if it's not Santorum, will you fully get behind Mitt Romney if he's the eventual nominee?
We'll probably fully get behind to defeat Barack Obama, is what we'll probably do. What we're going to do is let the primary process work itself out right now, and let's see who's the best pro-family candidate that we can support, and that's where we're at today.
Mr. Pettipas, explain again what you reached unanimity on.
We reached unanimity on a couple things. One is that the organization thoroughly did its job in the presidential lecture series, Thanksgiving Family Forum, the 99 county tour, the sweeping pledge of advancing pro-family values. And them saying, because the organization is a standard bearer, we believe it needs to remain neutral. They also reached unanimity of the caucus goers are still looking for a leadership voice. And therefore the unanimity was, let's have Bob and Chuck be able to give that individual leadership voice. And I believe they also have reached unanimity individually themselves of who we are supporting in Rick Santorum.
So Chuck, you want to have a coalition. You guys say you want a coalition or a coalescing of support behind Rick Santorum. What can you say to supporters of Michelle Bachmann and Rick Perry that they should coalesce behind Rick Santorum?
It's about the country. We're going down the tubes, Gary. And it's got to be about others and not ourselves. And I would say to Rick Santorum to his face, if there's an arrangement whereby somebody else of the pro-family candidates is a better executive in Rick Santorum's mind, in his heart, get behind him. I have played a lot of sports, and I've seen teams that have some superstars still lose. And I've seen teams that have people kind of like me on the team, but it's one for all and all for one. And you can win when you put other people ahead of yourselves. And to me, that's the essence. It's a hard issue. All these people have been raising money and campaigning hard to be president, and I respect that. I love that. But not everybody can be president. And because of the fracture of the caucus voter, this calls for a special humility. This calls for a team concept, and I hope and pray that happens. Maybe it won't happen by January 3rd. Maybe it'll start happening on January 4th. I'd prefer before the 3rd. So that team could come out number one in Iowa.
We have one more question.
When did you inform the Santorum campaign of your decision, and what was their reaction?
I haven't informed the Santorum campaign.
We see a couple of the members here this morning that arrived before your press conference.
Well, my guess is they're probably pleased with our decision. I'm not sure, Jamie, maybe you want to talk about that.
Did it get late? I mean, we tried our best.
We tried our best to keep that.
His national and political director was seen here before the press conference started.
Let me just say, I'm Jamie Johnson. I am the State Coalitions Director for the Rick Santorum for President campaign here in Iowa. The answer to your question, Anthony, is no. No communication of any form in any official capacity or unofficial capacity was sent to the Rick Santorum for President campaign. I came out here this morning in Urbandale, having driven an hour and a half from the north, to show my solidarity with the family leader, with Bob Vander Plaats, with Chuck Hurley, with the board, and with all of the donors that have worked so hard over the years to promote a pro-faith, pro-family, pro-freedom agenda here in Iowa. And that's why I'm here. I only happened to walk in the door and realize that the person for whom I've been working for 6 months is the man whom Bob Vander Plaats and Chuck Hurley are endorsing. So I do want to, on behalf of the Rick Santorum for President campaign, thank Mr. Vander Plaats and thank Mr. Hurley for their bold step this morning in trying to galvanize and unify Iowa's pro-family conservatives around a single candidate, former U.S. Senator of Pennsylvania, Rick Santorum. That's all I have to say. God bless you.
Thank you, Jamie. One other question that we have.
Bob, you say that the family leader itself is not endorsing because it's the standard bearer, but wasn't the intention to always to make an endorsement, and was there some disagreement, and is that why the?
No, it's not. I think the agreement is a lot of people. It's funny how sometimes media puts names on things. They say the kingmaker, and they're like, we're not a kingmaker. We're a standard bearer. We also recognize that we have a lot of people who support the family leader. A lot of people. And some of them are with different candidates. And they're saying that might be disingenuous to them to say, but now our organization is going to get behind one and we're going to kind of leave it. They just thought it'd be better that the organization stay solid as a standard bearer, but the voice of leadership could still come through myself as well as Chuck Hurley. So they're unanimous, and I feel good about where the board is at. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll see you, and Merry Christmas. We'll probably see you after Christmas.